What's up, Buck? Doug with D&E in the garage. Today we're talking about Jeep concept vehicles. This is part 2 of our top 10 list of the top 10 Jeep concept vehicles that we think Jeep should have actually made. They actually should have put into production. I highly recommend you go and see part 1. You're not going to know any of the characters. You're not going to understand the storyline. Part 1 was number 10 down to number 4. Today we're doing the top 3. I had to break it into 2 pieces because, go figure, I had too much to say on the topic. All right, without further ado, let's dive headfirst right into the top 3. Number 3, and I should add about the top 3, I struggled with which order these 3 should be in. I knew that these were the top 3. I didn't know what order they could have been in, and honestly, if I'd been in a slightly different mood when I was writing the script for this video, any 3 of these could be in any position. But we're gonna run with it. Number 3, the 2010 new Kyser 715 concept. This thing is insane. All right, now I talked in part 1 about this video of the, I talked about the Gladiator trucks from the 1960s. I talked about the military M715 trucks. If you want to know more about those trucks, check out our history of military Jeeps video. We talk a lot about them. If you haven't seen it, I recommend going and seeing it because this new Kyser concept is an homage to the military Jeeps of the 1960s and 1970s. The trucks, the pickup trucks that Kyser Jeep produced for the military. What they did here is they sought to recreate, and if you look at this thing side by side with an old Kyser Jeep pickup truck, it makes perfect sense. But how did they achieve this? How did they build this concept? That's what's really cool. And I should mention, this thing fully functional. They built this thing, then they took it and they off-roaded it in the desert to great effect. Crazy cool vehicle. They started with a J8 body. Again, if you're not familiar with the military J8, the military version of the JKU, go check out the history of Jeep's video. I keep bringing that up because I don't want to restate all the information here. They took a J8 military JKU and they took it from 116 inches, they stretched it out to 124 inches. That's how they got the cab. Then they took an AEV brute conversion for a TJ. They took that bed and that's what they used for the bed. And that's how they got this crazy style out of this thing. It's a JKU body mixed with a AEV brute conversion bed, and then the front is all carbon fiber. The hood and the whole front clip is a custom carbon fiber setup, and it's clear what they did. It's almost identical to the 1960s Jeeps. On top of that, they gave it Dynatrac, Pro Rock, Dana 44, and Dana 60 front and rear axles, respectively. They gave it an Atlas II transfer case and ARB lockers. They built this thing, this total Frankenstein, out of Jeep parts, out of conversion parts, and then out of carbon fiber. They gave it an insanely capable suspension setup, and then they took it to the desert to beat the heck out of it. Now, I don't think this vehicle was really ever being considered for production. Do I think it would be awesome? Yes. Do I think people would buy it? Freaking obviously. I mean, you need to make some changes. Not you need to make some changes, but I know some changes would have to be made for this thing to be viable as a production vehicle. So make the changes and build the damn truck, man. This thing is freaking awesome. All right. I want to know in the comments if anybody would not want this thing sitting in their driveway. It's just impossible. The Gladiator that we got, fine. We talked about the Gladiator concept in the first video, cool. But this thing, this is the Jeep pickup truck I want to see out there on lots. This one, build this, do more of this. Damn, that thing is cool. All right, let's move on before I have an aneurysm. Number 2 on the list is a vehicle that I would bet money, I'd bet my next paycheck that you have never heard of. Actually, I wouldn't bet my next paycheck because you guys are crazy, man. You guys know Jeeps. Our viewers are the freaking best when it comes, you guys have the knowledge. So, who here is familiar with the 1971 Jeep/AMC concept for the Cowboy? Let me give you some background before I dive into what the Cowboy is. All right, 1971, AMC has just acquired Kyser Jeep. They now own the storied American brand Jeep. All right. Additionally, they just spent $40 million developing the Hornet. AMC is a tiny company. These 2 big purchases put them in a place where they had a lot of potential, but like no money. No money whatsoever. No money to develop new cars, no money to do anything cool with their new brand. So they're sitting there thinking, what do we do with Jeep? We just bought it, we have no money. And they say, you know what? We have this Hornet platform. Why not try to do something with that? That way we're getting double for our money that we just spent, and we don't have to put out a ton of money to develop a new vehicle for Jeep. Another thing you need to understand about AMC, the reason they were allowed to survive for so long in a highly competitive market when you got the big three owning most of the business is that they never tried to compete directly with the big three. All right, if Ford does something, Chevy and Chrysler respond, they try to do the same thing, direct competition all the time. AMC survived by serving niche markets. And what that means is a lot of times in the 60s, 70s, into the 80s, they are in not direct competition with the big three, but with foreign markets, right? They would build tiny cars like the Pacer. They would build crazy, weird things like the Gremlin. So we have these facts. They want to do something with their Hornet platform, and they're always trying to serve these niche markets. One of these niche markets that's emerging is the small truck market. All right, 1971 is only 1 year before the rebranded Isuzu Chevy Love truck hits the market. You've got Nissan trucks on the market. You have German trucks on the market. Additionally, the El Camino and Ranchero are selling like crazy. So AMC decides, I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna build an El Camino style small truck. We'll serve that niche market, and we can do it on the Hornet platform. And they come up with the design for the Cowboy. This thing is freaking awesome, all right? It's just so cool looking, and the best part is that it says Jeep on the front. Now, something that a lot of people may not know is that the El Camino was insanely expensive to develop and to manufacture. And the reason is the unibody, the one-piece body that it has, all right? Those long, large, sweeping body panels were insanely expensive to build. AMC couldn't do it. So what they did instead, and I need to get all this information out to express how cool this concept vehicle was going to be. What they did was they used the same subframe idea that Chevy had proved was possible with the Camaro. And if you don't know, the Camaro, it has its frame and everything, and then it's got a subframe as the engine chassis. And Camaro really proved that that was possible. We take that design for granted today. People do that. A lot of people do that. Everybody does that. But it was not always known whether or not that was actually a viable way to put a car together. So what they would decide to do, AMC decides, they're going to do the opposite. They got the body of a Hornet, basically, and then they use a subframe to support the bed. Interestingly, this is the same thing that AMC would do later when developing the MJ Comanche, and it's one of the things that made the Comanche such a unique truck to drive. You've got the unibody truck and then a subframe holding on the bed. It made it very rigid, very tight. Now, back to the Cowboy. Because they couldn't produce these long sweeping body panels that Chevy and Ford were using on the El Camino and Ranchero, you had a more traditional cab and bed being separate on this Cowboy concept, and it gives it this crazy, hard to define image. It doesn't look like the other truck cars that were being produced along at that time, but it's also not fully a truck. It's just crazy interesting to look at. Now, they wanted to build this. They absolutely wanted to build this. This thing would have gotten all the same big, beefy American Detroit steel motors that the Hornet got, 360 and whatnot. The problem was, by the time production was done with the concept, and they were, or development was done with the concept, and they were moving to production, they also had another vehicle that they were considering. It was another Hornet-based vehicle, but it was a hatchback instead of a truck. And the gas crisis was heating up, and they were looking ahead at the market, and they said, what's going to sell better? We only have money to make one of these vehicles. Is a hatchback version of the Hornet going to sell better, or is a truck version of the Hornet going to sell better? They made the determination that the hatchback version was going to sell better, and we got the Gremlin instead of the Cowboy. We were this close to never knowing what the Gremlin was and instead getting the Cowboy. Now, as much as it pains me to say it, they probably were right at the time, but I think in the long run, think how popular mini trucks became. In the long run, the Cowboy would have sold better than the Gremlin. is my assertion. Either way, I think they should have built this one, and I still think they should. I think small trucks should come back. I know people would buy them, and I think Jeep should be the one to do it. All right, you gave us the Gladiator. It's a behemoth. People argue it's not actually that big. It's the same size as the Chevy. Whatever, man. It's freaking huge. All right, it is in no way what we expected when you told us we were getting a Jeep truck. God damn it. We were thinking MJ. When you told us you were giving us a Jeep truck, we were thinking Comanche. We were thinking Gladiator from the 1960s. We weren't thinking Hummer truck. Dang it. Not that I hate the new, I'm just saying. Anyway, geez, I'm on a tangent now. So yes, build the Cowboy, please. Give it a better name. As much as I love the name Cowboy, like what's more American than a car truck named the Cowboy? You probably have to give it a better name. You can bring back the Comanche nameplate and put it on it. That's number 2 on the list. As you can imagine, number 1 on the list is reserved for a very special vehicle. Now, I debated with myself over, is the Cowboy the number 1? Is the new Kyser number 1? But in the end, there was only one vehicle. I am so in love with this concept. It is such an insanely cool vehicle. It's the 2015 Chief concept. All right, now this is again a vehicle that they built 100%. They took it out to the desert, Easter Jeep Safari, they wheeled it, they built it to be used. All right, now very clearly, I don't even need to say it, it's incredibly clear that this is an homage to the 1970s full-frame SJ Cherokees. That's immediately apparent. There's no denying it. The dead giveaway is the fact that it doesn't have a C-pillar. Instead of a C-pillar, it's got a big beefy roll bar hidden behind the B-pillar, and then a beefier D-pillar, just like the SJ Cherokees. They didn't have a roll bar, but you get what I'm saying. Now, how did they build this crazy thing? It's based on a JKU. They took a JKU, they chopped the roof down, they chopped out the C-pillar, and then they gave it custom nose and tail. And you can see it's got that slanted grille, just like the new Kyser did, just like all the Wagoneer-based vehicles did in the 60s and 70s. But the really cool part, I mean, the front grille is what grabs your attention. You're like, oh man, that looks like an old Jeep. But then the really cool part is the pointed rear end and the rear taillights, which are just, they look like they came off a vehicle from 1970. It's insane. They're trimmed in chrome. The thing is absolutely crazy. Now, another interesting thing, if you look at this, it looks like a 2-door, right? They wanted it to look like the old 2-door Cherokees. It's actually a 4-door. They took away the rear external door handles, and they intentionally blended everything together to make it look like a 2-door. Now, the one issue is that there's no glass in the back of this thing. I was reading reports of like reporters who got to drive in it, and they said it was friggin' cold. Like, they were there out in the desert in the morning, and I guess it was like, you know, 55, 60 degrees before the sun fully came up, and they said the heater was on, but they were freezing cold because there's no glass anywhere in the back of this thing. So if they were going to bring it to market, I don't think you can make it look exactly like this. It probably needs a C-pillar because safety, I guess. I hate safety is killing vehicles, man. It stinks. It stinks. These stupid safety. If I want to buy an unsafe vehicle, I'm a goddamn American, and that's my freaking choice. Build me a vehicle that's likely going to kill me. Put a sign on it that says this is likely going to kill you, but if you're okay with that, go ahead and buy it, and just let me do me, man. They likely couldn't build it like this is what I'm getting at. So it has to have a D-pillar if they actually build it. This one has incredibly cool but very specific internal stylings. It's Hawaii themed to the point where it's got Magnum PI stickers all over it. So it's got a tiki torch shifter. The rear cargo area has rosewood slats. Very cool vehicle. This would obviously be a trim level, but make a base model that has, instead of 2-tone paint, 1-tone paint, or 2-tone, whatever you want to do. You have to give it a more modern grille, I imagine, but please build something like this. I love this concept so much. It's probably because of how much I love Wagoneers and SJ Cherokees. This thing is the most beautiful thing I think I've seen that was built after the year 1980. It is freaking gorgeous. This one, they gave Mopar locked differentials and some other off-road features so that it could hang out there in the desert, but it's just gorgeous. There's nothing else that can be said about it. This is a gorgeous vehicle. And in fact, all of the concepts, with the exception of maybe the Trio, which is pretty friggin' ugly, but like in a weird fun way, they're just gorgeous, man. And I honestly wish we could build just one of these things. And if we could build just one of these things, which should we build? I asked you in the last video which of the 10 to 7, 10 to 4 would you want built. I'm gonna ask you again, which of the top 3 would you want built, and overall, which one would you want built? Which one, if you could appeal to the powers that be at Jeep, would you say, build that thing, dummy? People will buy it. If you build it, they will come. Absolutely. So leave me a comment down in the squawk box. Let me know what you know of this list. I apologize that I had to split it into 2 parts. I'm long-winded. I get that comment all the time. Man, this guy talks too much. I don't know, man. I don't know. You saw that it was a 20-minute video when you clicked on it. It's not like it was a surprise. Right? I mean, it's not like it's surprising to you. Oh, crap, a 40-minute video. I thought it was going to be 4 minutes. It says right there, man. Anyway, I digress again. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.